Waiting for Joe Flacco to get back out there, as well as some other injuries we're all monitoring around here in August. With football coming back, the stories continue, and the stories of CTE that I think we've been outlining these for about a decade with this guy. We've known him a long time. We meet him at the Super Bowl every year. He comes by. Stories come, they go. I had another former friend, or not a friend, former Raven, who is a friend, having some off-the-field issues as well that was brought to light to my attention a couple of months ago anonymously. So Chris Nowinski joins us now. The website is concussionfoundation.org. Many of you may be familiar with Chris Harvard, the wrestler, Chris Nowinski, the football player, and Dr. Chris Nowinski, who has been working on CTE about as long as anyone. Chris, first off, welcome back, man. How's the weather in Boston this week, okay?
Miserable as always.
All right. Well, I mean, hey, you're in first place up there, so, we got our own problems around here. But, I think the first time I ever heard about this stuff was from you. You were passing out pamphlets, and my guys knew who you were from your wrestling days. We booked you on the program, and, you told me, I remember it was prophetic. I mean, it might have been in Miami, some Super Bowl a long time ago, where you said, this is going to be the biggest story in the league, and it's going to get bigger every year. And I know you've said all that. And then, I think every fan is familiar with what it is, and part of it, they don't know the seriousness of it. The league says, well, I'm not a doctor and all that. But then the John Urschel thing happens, and I guess for every fan base, when something like that happens, it sort of opens up the why. And in the case of John Urschel and the new research that keeps coming out that your foundation's working on, it does affect the game, and it certainly affects the way we talk about the game, and it certainly affects the people in the game, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't a shock to see John Urschel hang it up. I mean, basically the idea is, we're trying to get our arms around this disease, CTE, and we've been at it now with our collaboration with the Foundation and Boston University and the VA for 9 years. And so we've accumulated a lot of brains, and we're getting a better understanding of what we're looking at. When I first met you, there were, a dozen football players diagnosed with CTE, and they said, this is alarming, but we don't really know a lot. Now we're years later, and we've got 110 former NFL players diagnosed with CTE out of 111 brains that we've looked at. And we even have seen this in athletes as young as 17. So we know this is a problem. We just don't know how big of a problem it is. Certainly not at 99% of NFL players have this pathology, but what we've seen basically in getting such a high volume is that we've gotten about 10% of the brains of NFL players who've died in the last few years. And so the floor is 10%. And maybe that's what some players are reacting to when they choose not to continue playing is that, I think we've established there's a non-zero chance of having CTE if you've played in the NFL, and it's not insignificant. Now there's another threshold, like we're seeing pathological CTE, we're seeing the disease. It doesn't necessarily mean it's destroying your life when you have it. Early stage, we don't really know if it's affecting symptoms. Late stage, it's definitely affecting you. And so we don't know if that, everyone's going to have their life destroyed by it. But again, it's like you'd rather have a healthy brain than a not healthy brain. And if you think about someone like John Urschel, if he's responding to this research, he was born with a pretty special brain, being able to do the mathematics work he's able to do. And so why risk it for anything?
Well, I guess at the beginning of this, you were a football player. You were involved in this. Is this something where the advocacy becomes don't play football? I mean, I know we've come a long way on this, and I know there'll always be someone to play football in the same way that when I go to Australia or Europe, they have, dead babies and stuff on cigarette packages, and people still smoke them, So, I mean, I know that that's going to be there, but, I haven't heard a really loud roar of any kind of don't play football. There are plenty of people who say, well, I don't want my kid playing this. There are plenty of people that say, I don't want my little girl playing soccer and using her head to head a soccer ball. There's been plenty of research on that, and as I'm sure you're familiar with as well. But, I think I do begin to wonder when guys don't want to play the game and are walking away to some degree. Look, I mean, a lot of people didn't want to box. We knew 40 years ago it didn't take Tex Cobb or, deaths in the ring back in the 1980s for us to understand that. And I have grave concern for these mixed martial art people, which it feels insane to me on any given day. But the screaming for let's not have football in our society, I think it's we're not far off on that based on your research, and I'm assuming more people are going to be dying over the next year, 2, 5, 10. Hell, I'll probably still be here doing sports radio. You'll still have this cause and have your life really dedicated to it. But, at what point do organizations start to make that sort of noise?
Well, I think, it's sort of, to put this in context of other things that we allow in society, right? I remember I came into this world out of the professional wrestling world where I took some enormous risks with my body and, gave and took chair shots to the head for the entertainment of the fans and for some money. And so,
which would have made you a murderer if the other guy died, right? I mean, let's, from an insurance standpoint, right?
I'm not quite sure.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah, but so we have to understand that we allow people to do dangerous jobs if we feel they understand the risk. And so part of this, when I started this was, as a recently retired ex-athlete, was I would have liked to understand the risks I was exposing myself to. I didn't know. And now, if you pay attention, you should know. And so adults can choose whether or not to play. Most are choosing to continue to play and to get paid for it, and that's great. Those guys also have a union that allows them to negotiate the terms of their employment and the safety of the game. And so I don't think anyone has to look sideways at the NFL and say that shouldn't exist, right? If people want to play and people want to put the games on and fans want to watch, have at it. But where this does, in a normal response to any sort of public health risk or any sort of disease state, we need to consider, who's vulnerable to this and maybe who shouldn't be playing the game. And I think the longer I do this as a guy who just started playing football in high school and had immediate success and recognizing, what you're really learning when you play, I've come to the conclusion that I don't think kids should be playing before high school. I don't think, if you actually look at the history of the game, football was designed for college athletes. It was never designed for kids. We didn't get to 5-year-olds playing football until about 90 years into the existence of football, and I think that was more it wasn't until the 1960s that Pop Warner became a real the national organization that was heavily recruiting kids to the game, and then started to get some help from industry. And I think it made sense from a business perspective. It even made sense from a youth perspective until we knew the risks of the brain damage. Now that we know, I think we have to step back and reassess and go, well, let's see. It appears very clear that risk of CTE is associated with the number of years you play. It's a dose-response disease risk, not unlike smoking and lung cancer, that it's not 1 year of smoking and then you quit and you get lung cancer. It's if you smoke 1 year, your risk is very, very low, and if you smoke 50 years, your risk is very, very high, and it's a curve in between. And I think that's what we're seeing with football, and I think the more we study, the more we'll see that. And if that's the case, then it just means, this isn't for kids, because you're not gaining anything. There's no benefit that young. You can play any other sport and get the sports benefits, but you don't get 500 blows to the head each fall. And then let you play in high school. You have a nice short career unless you go on to college. If you have played then, you're 18. And suddenly, literally the problem with football and CT is mostly fixed simply by saying it's not a good idea to hit children in the head over and over again.
Well, so and every year I have guys come to me at the Super Bowl with helmets that are, Steve Austin, $6 million. I hear all of that, but then I watch the sport, I see the sport, I played the sport at that age. I played football when I was 10, 11, 12 years of age, and I didn't play anymore after that. I did not play in high school, but, I'm familiar with putting on pads, and I'm familiar with training camp, and I'm familiar with NFL Sundays on the sidelines. So, I think you see it, and you realize there's a little crazy involved in it. I mean, that's sort of inherent in it from a risk standpoint and from what you're willing to do with your head, what you're willing to do with your body. And then we see guys like John Urschel walking away. I'm guessing we're going to see more of that, right? I mean, that's, this isn't in a bubble that percentage-wise, the kid from the 49ers a couple years ago walked away, and, since then we're starting to see more of it. I mean, I had Elvis Gerbach around here who said that he was leaving because of his family. He just didn't want to subject himself to it anymore. But I would think more people that are sitting on the fence, as much as the guys want to stay and they want to play and they want to get a pension and they want to do all that stuff, that, word gets around and they all see the violence. They're all a part of the violence. And every football player has seen somebody else get stretchered off at some point and take a knee and think, there by the grace of God, could I be? But walking away from millions and millions of dollars. That's a very, very hard thing to do. You know that. And, I mean, there's no doubt about that. And to see a guy like Urschel do it, I have a feeling he's going to be an activist on this case. And did you know him? Do you know him? Were you involved in any way with him?
No, never spoken to him.
Just a dude, right? Just a dude you read about and saw on HBO, right?
Exactly.
How many guys do you talk to or about? I mean, Chris, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I know you a little bit. I know you through the radio and a little in some social circles. If anyone were to say to me, who should I call for more information about this, I'd send them to you. I mean, you know as much about this as anyone, and I'm sure you've given incredible counsel on the inside, whether it's a little 2-minute conversation on the side or somebody really calling you and saying, hey, where can I get more information? I'm assuming the NFL doesn't hand this out on the first day of training camp and the getting to know you, right?
No,
they're not.
I'm actually. I mean, I'm not that hard to find. I'm actually surprised, how few athletes do reach out while they're active. I mean, while we've been having this conversation, I just had a recently retired player reach out over Twitter, and I've talked to a couple of players at the end of last season who have since retired. So I think it's like people want to start talking to me once they want to start getting out.
They already want to leave the Army, right? They're already ready to go to Canada and evade. Literally, if they're calling you, they're on the fence already, right?
Right, but only. I mean, no. I mean, I think while the guys are young, they keep themselves in a bubble, or the people around them keep in a bubble. They don't necessarily want to know everything they could know about this while they're trying to, fulfill their dream of playing in the NFL. And
if you think about it too much, it scares the manure out of you, right? Literally.
Yeah, no, I mean it's not easy to think about when you're finally on the cusp of you've been beating yourself up for 10 years to get to that point. Getting exposed to CT for free, and now you got a chance to get paid. Why would you? Go learn more. I mean, I understand why they don't. I'm sure there's a good chance I wouldn't have asked either if I was in their position.
He's an incredible resource for us around here trying to understand CTE better. Dr. Chris Nowinski. You can find him at Chris Nowinski. That's Nowinski1, the co-founder and CEO of Concussion LF. That is the Legacy Foundation. Where are you with this, and what are your goals? I mean, give me a little elevator speech on the the thesis statement of what you're trying to do, which is I guess do radio shows like mine and create awareness. But then what happens? And what were your goals in the beginning versus where you are right now?
So with the foundation, we sort of have two goals. One is the long-term goal has become, hey, let's treat this disease. Let's help out these guys who've been hurt. And it's not really just CTE. It's a lot of other effects from concussions and repetitive brain trauma. And so we want to have treatments, and that's sort of, you can look at me, I'm 38, that's the 30-year plan is that I can get something before something might happen to me. The short-term plan is how do we prevent bad outcomes for these athletes. And so we have a number of programs that are really looking to help out these people. We think of it as we do education, we do advocacy work to try to change sports, and then we try to take care of people who are hurt. So we just launched a post-concussion syndrome services section of our website. So someone with PCS and they're fighting to get through it. We got all the information they need now online, lots of videos, lots of interaction for young people. Education-wise, we're trying to tell people, hey, one of the big problems we have is that we don't diagnose concussions, which can be a real problem for creating post-concussion syndrome, which again was personal to me because that's what ended my WWE career. So our big program this fall is Team Up Speak Up. So go to teamupspeakup.org. Basically, the idea is it's really hard to ask a young athlete to pull themselves out of a game when they have a concussion. Team Up Speak Up engages your coach and your captain, the leaders on your team, to give a speech to the team before the season that says it's your responsibility to look out for your teammates with concussion. It's our effort to change the culture so that we actually diagnose these poor kids who are getting hurt and not leave them out there. So if you're an athlete or you got a kid who's an athlete, sign up at teamupspeakup.org and learn the program. It's very, very simple. And then, again, it's about changing sports. So the advocacy side, our big focus is, hey, let's stop hitting kids in the head so much. We solve a lot of these concussion CT problems by just respecting the fact that kids are kids, they're not adults, their brains are not meant to be hit. And if we adjust sports, like we convince U.S. Soccer to ban heading before 11, you're going to have better outcomes, and the sport does not suffer one bit. And so we're just trying to bring some sanity back.
That seems easy, right? I mean, that seems like an easy fix, right?
Yeah, It was the easiest. I mean, it took about 17 months of active campaigning through the media with people like Brandy Chastain and Cindy Parlicone and Taylor Twellman as soccer superstars saying, we don't need heading that young. Let's protect these kids. And people saw the light. They moved it to 11. I'd still say you don't want to hit your kid in the head a few hundred times a year until they're 14. So you may want to choose not to head in middle school. But prevention's the easiest thing we can do, and that's really where the foundation's focused on is let's help kids get through sports healthy.
Here's my little shoot on you on the wrestling side. I go to your Wikipedia, and there's a whole section about Harvard, and there's a whole section about CTE and Concussion the movie and all that stuff. And then there's the wrestling part of your life. And by the way, you look great in the red. I got to admit, the red was was you.
It's called Crimson.
Crimson. I'm not a Harvard guy. I went to Dundalk. What can I say? Where's McMahon on all this? I mean, honestly, you obviously have some sort of relationship there and in the wrestling side of things, and obviously I think the MMA is, I mean, no offense, I just think it's madness. I mean, I don't know any other word for it. It just feels to me like straight, and I have friends that Johnny Rollo, I mean, I have guys I grew up with, I'm down, right? I mean, go do it. I don't know. It sort of frightens me for all of them, quite frankly. And I guess McMahon being involved in this, has he been in any way supportive, or just?
No, he's been great. I mean, he's actually the biggest funder of the foundation. He gives unrestricted gifts to help us with research, and they've amounted to.
See, I didn't even know that. Year, I mean, I'm glad I asked this question.
Yeah. No, at the end of this year, it'll be a total of $2.7 million over the last 6 years, and so. It's incredible. It's incredible generosity, but I think you have to recognize that there's a lot of different influences there. I mean, because of my involvement in this, I think the WWE has sort of had a front row seat to the rapidly changing science, and very early on, once we got past the unfortunate Chris Benoit situation, which sort of caught us all off guard. I mean, it happened 10 days after I started the foundation. They realized that their interests were very much aligned with our success, in the sense that MMA, they're literally trying to knock each other out, and that's how they succeed. And with wrestling, they're trying to have 40-year careers. They're trying to keep these guys healthy. Because it's all the longer you have John Cena in the ring, the more money you can print. And so what's been great is they don't not only fund us, but I go down once a year and do training for the wrestlers to say, and they don't even ask what I'm going to say. It's basically, here's what I would tell you if I was in your position. Here's what a concussion is. Stop the frickin' match if you think you have one, or if you think the guy you're with has one, because a lot of stuff can go wrong, whether it's your career or whether it's getting a really severe injury. And then let's try to, whatever you do, think of it as risk management. You do not, you might want to pull off a spectacular move once in a while, but don't put yourself at risk on a regular basis, or you'll have a short career. So that's been a fascinating culture change to watch, and it's very cool. To have the McMahons backing it. It's very cool. We have Triple H on our board of directors, Paul Levesque, who's actually really brilliant when it comes to business stuff. No surprise, I guess, once you've seen the success he's had. But and I think it's also interesting if you think about the leadership there, that they have a little skin in the game, right? We've all been out there taking risks, not really understanding it. Now that we do, we'd all be happy to see a treatment if we ever needed it too.
Dude, you're doing good work, man. Proud of you. I'm always appreciative of your time and making me a little bit smarter about this, which I do appreciate, because I run in the circle of MMA fighters and wrestlers and football players all the time. I mean, it's all I've done for 25 years. And I had another friend, unfortunately, having some problems off the field, with his brain, and and I know it's been brought forth by some of his teammates and whatnot, and I'd like to say, well, it's being handled, he'll be fixed, but I don't think he'll ever be fixed. You know what I mean? Like
I'm sorry to hear that.
But I know there are a lot of challenges, especially guys my age. I mean, you say you're 38, I'm 48. I mean, all the football players I know literally are between the ages of now 21, the guys that are coming in, but the retired guys from 35 to 55, and this is when things start to happen, right? This is when the Andre Waters Junior say out, when things happen and people are asking why. And I'm glad that a guy like you's sitting on the fence trying to make it better and educate people. So I do appreciate your time as always, Chris. Thanks for coming on, man.
All right, thanks, Nestor. Take care, buddy.
You got it, man. Concussion Legacy Foundation is the way to find Chris. Concussionfoundation.org. He also tweets Dr. Chris Nowinski at Chris Nowinski and the number 1 out on Twitter, and a lot of important information, especially if your kids are playing contact sports or doing the MMA thing or doing the what we used to do in Dundalk, which was, emulate wrestling, jumping off of like couches and stuff. Hey, it happens, man. I've got the internet. I know this for a fact. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We are going to talk some football around here, as well as its dangers, inherent dangers. But we love the Ravens, and we'll be watching them on this weekend, next weekend, every weekend in the pursuit of getting to Minnesota for Super Bowl 53, right? 3? 2. I'm getting confused. 2, right? 2. I think, yes. 50 was in San Francisco. 2. Like 52, Ray Lewis. He'll be going to the Hall of Fame next year, too. You can also get our morning newspaper delivered to your email doorstep at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's digital, and it's free, and it's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. And that is all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis Kolatzis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5, getting you ready for some football. Last but never least, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.